Hello, everyone. You're listening to Northern Flights, a Park Pro podcast keeping you up to date with the people, tournaments, and culture of disc golf in Canada and beyond. Consider becoming a Patreon today at patreon.com/parkpro. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by DiscGolfPark. And now your hosts, Andre, Jesse, and Matt.
All right, everybody. No Jesse today, but we've got two very special guests with us. First of all the way from just north of Edmonton, Alberta, we've got Matt Lillisher, home of Wildman Disc Golf, a private course just north of Edmonton. And all the way from Ontario, we've got Gabe Robinson, who runs Project 15, legendary private course out in Ontario. And as you might have guessed, we have a theme for the episode. We wanted to talk about private disc golf courses, and we couldn't have found two better guests to have on to talk about that. So welcome to the show, Matt and Gabe. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. Yeah, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, this is a pleasure. I've been watching your podcast for a while. Really like what you guys are doing and the production stuff. So this is a real thrill.
Awesome. Well, we're super thrilled to have you guys. Private disc golf courses are not a new thing, but I think there is increasingly a home for private disc golf courses around the country. And as the sport grows and as people get more into it, there's going to be demand for courses where maybe there isn't a municipal park, or there isn't, club funding to install a course, or maybe somebody just has some amazing property, but, needs to be able to finance it. And, so private courses are definitely a thing, as they are in ball golf. So I would love to know, first of all, how the idea of a private course came to each of you, and how you came on your journey. So Gabe, why don't you start us off?
Be happy to. Like a lot of things in life that end up sort of getting out of hand, this got out of hand for me. I originally planned to make 3 small sort of pitch and putt holes on my land. I own 100 acres near Peterborough, Ontario. And it's very interesting terrain, up and down, woods, open field, and so on. And using just a little corner of it, I planned on this little 3-hole loop that I could go out in the backyard after work or whatever and just have some fun. As I learned more about it and thought more about it and thought about what the local disc golf map sort of needed, more and more, also with some advice from some other people who knew a lot more about it than I did at the time, more and more made sense to go for something a little bit more exciting, more extravagant, bigger, longer, and so on. The region had some short courses, and for some reason I went from saying I want 3 holes for me to play to saying I want 9 first and then later 18 holes that other people will play. But at the same time, I certainly didn't want to make a business of it. That's not to say that I didn't want to try to cover costs, but the whole venture was never with the express purpose of trying to make cash. I didn't expect to be able to do that. I didn't know enough about the community and the economy and disc golf this was back in 2016, 2017. So I really did, we didn't even have the COVID boom at that point. But the local city nearby had a league and a bunch of enthusiasts. But I wasn't even really thinking about them so much as my own process, my own journey, my own course. And with help that I got and the advice that I got, and this is important, at least for me, and I think a lot of people in this sport have a similar kind of background. I came from the world of ball golf. Not that I was good at it, but I was passionate about it. I liked it. I'd been playing for 10 years or something. Again, not well, but I understood the sport and understood the courses to some degree, and was really taken by the idea of building something sort of grand and challenging and sort of special, in the sense that it wasn't just another plain old course. And I think the land helped. The particular parcel of land, you mentioned something like this, sort of led me in that direction more and more. And my own sort of sense of how the game should work. I had a lot of learning to do, of course, in the beginning, but I wasn't even thinking of it as a private course in the terms that we're going to use tonight. At the time, I was thinking about just making myself a course. And over time, these things grow and develop, as I'm sure Mathew would agree. And the whole project itself, this is what part of why it's called Project 15, my course. The project kept sort of developing, and over time, I sort of settled into what the shape of it was. The course kept getting bigger, more challenging, and more became this thing that people appreciated for being difficult, for being special, for being slightly remote, for being challenging, and being and I think this is a significant piece, and I won't go on and on here, but being expressly built top to bottom for disc golf. And so much of what you see in the landscape of disc golf is jammed into a little corner in a municipal park, or converted farmland, or converted dead ball golf courses, or whatever. This course from top to bottom was built every hole for disc golf. And that had a big piece of sort of led me to understand how this is supposed to work, at least in my own mind, and sort of framed the project in my sense, in my mind, for sort of where we were going with it. Again, learning all the time, figuring out the direction as we go, but that's sort of the origin story for me and my course.
And before we get to Matt, Gabe, this land that you had prior to playing disc golf and getting into disc golf, and then once you started playing it, you just realized this would be ideal, or was this something that kind of popped up after you started playing the sport?
I'd owned the land at the time for almost 10 years. And in that time, I see some of the stuff in the background there, Matt. I was curious about it before we met. And we used to play paintball on the land as young men. And the terrain lent itself very well to paintball. And it also turned out that portions of it lent itself very well to disc golf. But no, I owned the land prior. You could sort of guess part of what made sense to me about the land itself was getting it used, doing things with it, having fun with it, making it into my own project. In some ways, all we're doing is a big garden that you can play in. Yes, it's a course, and it has all these special parameters to make it into a disc golf course. But on a very personal level, maybe Matt would agree with me on this, it's really just a long walking path, or a big garden that you work on constantly and share with people. So I did own the land prior, and it continues to be this project that I go out and fiddle and build and change things, and really a very personal experience for me that is very closely connected to that piece of land.
Awesome. I can't imagine how busy you were with the other 14 projects before this. So that's great. And Mathew, how did you come about to be the owner operator of a private disc golf course north of Edmonton?
Kind of similar origin story. So I grew up just up the hill from Rundle Park, which is, I think, might have been the first course in Alberta. So it's kind of still the major hub of disc golf within Edmonton. And at the time, I didn't really know about disc golf. I don't even recall as a kid even seeing a basket, but did play a few times, probably like 2010, 2015, in that kind of era. And then got pretty big into it about 2 years before the pandemic, so, about 2017, 2018. And then pandemic hit, and it was like, well, I'm still going to go outside because there's nothing else to do. And we'd rip 5 rounds a day at Rundle, so it's the only place to play. And it was like, you know what? We need more courses. And at the height of COVID, it's not like, oh, there's all these projects happening, all this stuff's happening. It's like, oh, maybe the world's ending. Okay, we're just going to play disc golf. So it was there was not a lot on the horizon for all these new courses popping up like there is now, that kind of COVID and beyond players can kind of almost take for granted that all these things are popping up. There's private courses, there's more public courses, there's increases in number of holes, and different layouts for current courses, and that it's back at time, like I'm just the very end of the old school, right before the new school came in. So I kind of straddled both lines there a little bit, but still generally new school as far as disc golf goes. It's newbie when the pandemic hit, essentially. But I'd had some money tucked away, and it's always thought it'd be cool to have a piece of property and kind of be the bush guy that I kind of thought I could be, but never really had a purpose for it. And it made no sense just to go buy an acreage somewhere and just try and maintain a property in the city and a property in the country. So disc golf kind of fell into place. It said, hey, if you had a piece of property, you could do something with it. You could make it enjoyable. And it's like, I'm not into quadding, I'm not into cross country skiing really. And it's like, I've done those things, but that's not my jam. But disc golf is my jam. and basically bought this property in June of 21, and basically that was the best summer ever, and it seems like a million years ago, but wasn't that long ago. And literally, me and my buddies started hacking away at stuff with weed whackers and mowers and stuff, and just, hey, let's see what holes we can make. And it was more just experimental of, okay, so it's so the property is 69.5 acres in total. There's about 30 acres of field in the front, and then 40 acres of crazy up and down hills, and kind of medium to old growth forest stuff in there, and some new stuff, and good mix of trees and that. And we just started just hacking out holes, just take any little quad trail, game trail, just widen up and see what happens, and just kind of grew it from there.
Cool. Are you guys aware? Does it come into your guys' minds at all that, in a sense, you guys are living out the dream of so many people? I can't think of many disc golfers who haven't thought in their mind, I wish I had a property where I could build my own course. Is that something that you guys think about often, or you guys hear often? Let's start with Mathew.
Pretty often, yeah. I mean, and for all those people, it's like you don't have to own the property to help out. You can help out with your local clubs. You can offer to help private courses. There's always plenty of stuff to be done. There's always deadfall in the spring. There's always, depending on the situation you've got, like it's, say if you wanted to help out a certain course, it's you don't expect the owner to give you the keys to the tractor to go start, mowing stuff around, but helping move deadfall and bring a rake and show up to course cleanup days and stuff like that. Every little bit helps, and it's and like Gabe was saying, the crux of it, same for me, is it's about sharing this thing that we've built on our land. And it's not to make money. There's no money in it. It's ideally you stem the bleeding of money into the pit, but if it ever becomes some sort of break-even proposition, that would be amazing. But I don't expect that. But you can definitely help out just with just volunteer hours. It takes a lot of man hours to make these things happen. Being the owner is great and all, but it also means you're putting the bulk of the hours. So any help you can give the guys to make them want to keep going and doing what they want to do, to kind of to share for everybody, that's great.
And yeah, it does strike me sometimes as living the dream, as the joke goes. What's interesting coming from ball golf, all the times that you spend on the course playing ball golf, people are not, like, your card mates are not saying, oh man, I could have built a hole better than this, in ball golf terms. They aren't saying, I think this particular hole should actually be 430 yards, not 410 yards. And I'd have put the green over there. And I think this short tee isn't quite as good as it should be. And the obstacles are wrong. Ball golfers don't seem to critique courses the way that disc golfers seem to. And there is something much more immediate, accessible, sort of a closer connection to the land in disc golf. And some of that is that we use much more natural spaces than the highly artificial ball golf world. Even though it's sort of beautiful in its way and sort of serene and flattened out and all that stuff, we don't have to interact with the turf the way they do in ball golf. To our credit, it's much better. It's also, a third of the space more or less is used. Very few chemicals, much less mowing, all the things. There's a lot of things to recommend it. But it is interesting that I think just about every disc golfer within the first 3 or 4 rounds of their career are probably starting to design holes in their head and are starting to say, that tree really should get cut down, or why didn't they cut that tree down, or this branch hangs a little bit too low. I mean, it somehow spawns course experts immediately as soon as people start to play the game. And I mean, I'm trying to be a little bit funny, but I'm actually not any different. I just happen to be lucky enough to own some property and have a chance to start to think about this stuff. And I found, it came to me really, really quickly. Certainly not making a claim that I'm especially good at course design or anything. I don't have a lot of experience. But by the time I started to think about those first 3 little pitch and putt holes, that was sort of the beginning of the journey for me, something clicked. And it was really, really enjoyable, really interesting. The scale and the scope was really fun. The fact that each particular tree was could potentially be a very interesting part of a hole, every divot or mound or what have you. had the capacity to be a significant piece of a given hole. As soon as I got into thinking about those 3 little pitch and putt holes, I can still remember the rough layout on my land. Would have covered less than an acre. Something clicked. It was really exciting. It was really fun. And really, I still get to play that game with myself. So yes, most people just have to show up and play courses. I get to actually get out and tinker and play. And I can cut that tree that I've been thinking about for a long time, trim the branch, move a tee pad, and all that stuff to me is still really exciting.
I think that's great. And we'll get back to some of the course design stuff. Funny enough, running a disc golf media company is much the same way. Everybody else is an expert about your business. So I can definitely empathize with you guys on that one. And I'm sure Andre can as well. Before we get into some course design stuff, though, why don't can we get a description of each of your courses, just for people that haven't played them? Obviously, we got one out in the prairies and one out in Ontario. Maybe give just a quick synopsis of what kind of course is it? How are we talking? Heavily treed? Are we talking elevation, rocks? What kind of trees? And maybe if you have a favorite or signature hole. And why don't we start with Mathew?
I was gonna say, why don't we even if you can think of courses that you can compare to that, maybe even like from the Pro Tour, something like that, just so people can get a visualization of it, go from there.
Okay. I've never actually been to Hillcrest Farms in Prince Edward Island, but I have a good buddy of mine who's been out to my property and played it a number of times. And he visited. It was after they had the hurricane, so he didn't get to play it, but he got to walk the property. And he said it was pretty reminiscent of Wildman. That just the lots of ups and downs, different type of forest, just because it's not quite the same land type, but for the most part, fairly tightly wooded with some exception holes. We got a good mix of, try to save every spruce tree. I take after Mom that way. If it's spruce tree, like, no, don't step on that. Don't put that there. Like I've got a couple little spruce trees that to anticipate it growing in 5 years. Okay, put a little stake there so I don't run it over with the mower and things like that. So getting back to what Gabe said, it is very much using kind of the natural land, and we're not trying to create just this idyllic, ball golf course in whichever place we're in. And that's what's always attracted me to disc golf over ball golf. Great. It's nice to be able to get beers and drive around, legalize drunk driving on this beautiful piece of grass on a ball golf course, but it's not my jam. But it's a Wildman based on UDisc to play kind of the 18-hole layout. It's 21 floors of elevation up and down, so it is quite up and down. The average hole isn't super long, so on the first part of the treed 40 acres that I've used probably about 16 acres of that for the current 18 basket course. And just with the land type just being so up and down, it was hard to make longer holes. So I said, okay, for the first phase of the project, we'll have generally shorter holes and kind of use the crazy elevation side of the land. And then down the road, with the second part of the project, end up with, probably another 18 to whatever number of holes on the other side, and it should be quite a bit wider fairways and longer holes on average. It's not quite the same crazy ups and downs I've got on the current side of the property that's used.
And what's your favorite hole, or do you think of a signature hole in the property?
There's lots come to mind. I've got a soft spot for hole 17. So on mine, I've got 3 different tee pad layouts. Got to the reds for kind of the newbie tees, the whites for the intermediate kind of MA2 level players, and then the blues as the tips. And last year I aced from the red and the white tee box, and not for lack of trying. Couldn't get the blues on it, but it's just a nice, just downhill, just hyzer left, just a pretty stock kind of flat hyzer that fades out shot, but it's blind, so you have no idea. You can see the disc disappear, and then it's still about another 3 seconds or 4 seconds till it hits the basket. So you're like, oh, maybe that's the one, and occasionally here's some metal, and then you get excited, and sometimes it's not in the bucket. But it's off the top of my head, I think it's about, from the white pads, about a 250-foot downhill shot. So yeah, just not an easy one to get, but I managed to get it twice from the 2 different tee pads. So I do quite like that one. It's got kind of as the downhill, as you go back to the front of the property, it's got kind of the big spruce trees at the front and the side of this hill, and you can peek through these trees and you can see kind of the field in front, and it's kind of this majestic, kind of almost BC feeling area in the land. There's only a few holes that have that kind of British Columbia feel to them, and that is one of them.
Totally agree. Great description of it. And yeah, that is a memorable hole for sure. Gabe, how would you describe Project 15 to somebody that hasn't been there?
Yeah, let me try. I'm feeling strangely on the spot. I feel like I should have a good answer for this already. Let me throw a few things at you. The course sprawls over about 30 acres, which is about a third of my land. It moves through some what you call a gravel pit. So a bunch of gravel's been pulled out of the area, leaving some high, so not cliffs, but sharp slopes. It weaves through that, some field. It goes deep into the woods. There's some very old, beautiful old trees. The land is right at the edge of the Canadian Shield, which is where all the granite that is underneath us has been scraped clean by the glaciers. And it's right at the edge of that where the limestone that lays over it is starting to be exposed. So there's some really tough footing in some spots, some up and down. Some people find that really difficult because you've got to have a really solid standstill to do well with it. And other parts are really smooth and easy and easily mowed. The course has 2 sets of tee boxes, and I think I've got 4 or 5 different layouts in right now. I just put in a fourth and a fifth different layout on UDisc. Please check UDisc if you're interested. There's some pictures there. It'll give you a little bit better sense of what I'm doing than perhaps I'll be able to, but I'll give you some pieces of it. The gold layout, which is all the long tees, is over 9,000 feet. If you play all the shorts, I forget, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,500 feet. I have a couple of combined layouts, one, the blue layout and the teal layout, alternate tee boxes, long and short. And with that layout, I've been able to sort of pick and choose the most fun, most pretty, most exciting holes, not always the hardest. Whereas the gold layout is really trying to be hard and long and difficult. But the blue layout gets to sort of toe the line between, difficult and beautiful and challenging and fun and doable, not just sort of punishing. Added the teal layout for the Project 15 Open, which was just a couple of weeks ago, which is the blue layout with some adjusted pars for the FPO field. I think it's really important that we, take some really big steps in tournaments to accommodate and excite and interest the FPO field. I think that the days of when we would just sort of, have the FPO field play the same tees as everybody else and the same layout and the same tournament, I think that's a mistake. We're not talking about special treatment, but we're talking about people who don't throw quite as far. And we're talking about people who need to have a layout that really challenges them, interests them, and excites them. So I've always been trying to make sure pars are challenging, are difficult, would be always exciting for pros. So when you get into par 4s that should be 600 to 700 feet, for example, with this teal layout for the FPO layout, we called those par 5s in a few cases. And the report from the women was really good. They say things like it's really fun to be competing for eagles and birdies rather than surviving pars. So, anybody who's ever designed courses or thought seriously about it finds the game of par an interesting thing, but also feels sort of restricted and constrained by it and thinks of it as a real pain in the ass. But the truth is people want to play to par. And even though it doesn't actually matter in tournaments, it just your cumulative aggregate score is what matters. People are still very concerned with par, and it's a significant piece of their experience playing any given hole. So even if we hate it, even if it bothers us because it sort of limits us and we wish we could have a par 4.5 when in fact it's got to be a 4 or 5, all that aside, people want it. So when you play some games with the layouts, that's an important piece of what you do as a designer, in my opinion, or a course operator. I'm a little off topic. The course itself, again, about 9,000 feet, the long full course, works through very, very, very interesting terrain. About half the course is truly what you call a wooded course, though I've made sure that these fairways are quite substantial. There's spaces where you've got sort of 60 to 70 feet wide fairways, and they're still, 700, 800, 900 foot par 4s and 5s through the woods, past big trees. It's always trying to be dramatic. I like to sort of bullshit about the idea that every tee box is supposed to be this sort of postcard, beautiful image. You should stand on a tee box, be impressed by the beauty of it, and be intrigued and excited by the very puzzle that we're trying to play when we play the game. This sort of real-time puzzle. You should stand there and think, these are the options I have. These are the throws I have. This is what's in my toolbox. I'm really excited to try these particular solutions to the puzzle. All that stuff has to be apparent to you as you stand on a tee. And I think on a bunch of those holes, we've done a pretty good job of it. You asked about my favorite hole. I was just asked this recently by a guy named Josh Sachs, who's doing a cool podcast in Ontario, local pros and so forth. And again, I didn't have a great answer. There's the most iconic hole, which is short par three. It's the fourth hole. And there's a big oak tree, a red oak that has this branch that reaches across the fairway. And as luck would have it, it happens to sit right at this sort of perfect spot where you can sort of turn over it, or you can throw something really flat and penetrating, but you always seem to hit it. So visually, it's probably the most iconic hole. It's a simple hole that's kind of fun with a bit of a gimmick in it. And there's a bunch of other holes, or parts of holes, if I'm being a little more specific, that I'm really thrilled with. You might not love every part of every hole, but you might be really taken by a green, for example, or you think a tee shot or is beautiful and challenging and varied, and you're happy with that. So without boring you with a whole bunch of details, I'll just say there are a number of spots on this course that I'm really, really happy with. I think work beautifully. I won't list them for you. Hopefully you'll get a chance to try it sometime. But I don't have a favorite hole. I joke that they're all my babies and I love them all equally. That's partly true. But what's most true is that there's like a handful of spots on the course where I'll stand there sometimes and I'll just think, this particular spot in this particular hole couldn't be any better. And I'm probably wrong because it could be better, but my favorite parts of the course are these, this green and that tee shot and so on. So I don't have a single favorite. And again, I encourage you, if you're interested in the course, take a look at UDisc. There are a bunch of pictures there. It'll give you a pretty good sense of what's going on here.
Yeah, it's I'm a very visual person, so both of your guys' description, it's very helpful for me, and I love to imagine that stuff, and it's great, and I can really relate to what you guys are both saying. Is first of all, is as Mathew, as you were saying, is you guys decided to just kind of find a road, and that was going to be the hole, and kind of make it work, and then also Gabe, what you're saying about just like you're on the tee pad and you can kind of, if you visualize the hole and you can see what your throw is. I mean, one of the things that comes up on the podcast a lot in as far as design goes is this radium course. And I just remember there was this one spot where I walked and I was like, this has to be a hole. Like there's a nice platform. It's practically already a tee pad there. There's a creek running straight up the hole. It's an island green, basically. Like, this has to be a hole. It's picturesque. It's perfect. And yeah, I think that a lot of people kind of get that. And, it's very exciting for you guys to be able to live that and be able to establish those things. I found it very interesting in both your guys' introductions to your guys' courses at the very start. You brought two things that I think a lot of people think about when it comes to private courses. And obviously one of them is design. But the other is also the money. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, and this is one of those things, it's like, when you're trying to introduce people to disc golf, you're saying, oh, it's this cheap sport. You can buy discs for $30. It doesn't cost anything. Now, with the introduction of private courses, that is sort of, that's not as true anymore. But what, unfortunately, this whole idea of this sport being a cheap sport has also made a lot of the players kind of have that mindset of like, oh, disc golf, I have to pay to play. I'm not going to do that. How do you guys navigate that sort of mindset and that attitude? And granted, it's not everyone that has that, but I mean, UDisc just raised their prices to $40 for the month or whatever it is. And people are all up in arms. So I'm sure you guys kind of feel that a little bit too, when it's like, oh, we have to pay to play your course. And I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand is that money it all goes right back into the course. But yeah, if you guys could touch on that and how you guys navigate that. And why don't we start with you, Gabe?
Sure. You're right. I talk about the sort of disc golf price paradigm. And you spoke to it directly. What we're talking about is the fact that most people start playing disc golf on a little chunk of land in an underused park in a municipality, and the municipality already mows it, and a bunch of people got together and they got a bit of money and they put a few baskets in the ground, and now you've got down the street in the corner of a park a disc golf course, and the disc golfers come, right? They bring their friends get into it, their kids get into it. I mean, and for a lot of people, that sort of free get out in the park thing, you bring your dog, whatever, right? You can drink your beers, you can smoke your joints. The thing that the guys in the little municipal parks do, it's all really easy and accessible and cheap as free, as they say. So that works for most people, and it gets them in the door. It is for a lot of people a pretty amazing step up. That for my course, which is a $15 donation, it's not a fee, it's a donation. You can come and play, as I say, a course that's going to take you about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours to play. And there are a lot of people for whom that is a bridge too far. And I don't really want those people to come and play my course. So we're both winning on this front. The money isn't going into my pocket. I'm not buying beer with it. If I add it all up, I'm still in debt for the original $10,000 worth of baskets. Most people don't sort of see those baskets in the same way that we don't drive around town and see how much a stoplight system costs in millions. We don't see the roads. We don't see all the things that went into that. The education of the engineers who design those roads. You don't see this stuff in general. And people certainly don't see a basket and say, I just threw a hole. It took me 7 minutes to play it. And then I threw my disc into a $500 object that somebody had to pay for. They just go, why do I have to pay $15? I keep trying to tell myself not to swear. I assume you guys don't want me to swear on your podcast. If I'd checked earlier, I'd have dropped 6 F-bombs for effect. But the point is, the paradigm in disc golf is already set up where people expect it to be pretty much free. So in my case, I have some luck here, partly because the experience is fairly exclusive. It's significantly, I'll just say, sort of better and different from what your other options around town are. And there are a lot of people, at least in the UDisc world, who are what I call course collectors. So they go around, they want to play every damn course. And I think that's really cool. So I get people from all over I'll just say all over the world, but I really mean Ontario and the northern states, who sort of look at the ratings, by the courses by ratings, and they go, oh, here's a 4.8, got to play it. Or they say, I'm staying in a cottage somewhere nearby. Hey, here's the 6 courses in the neighborhood. Me and my bros are going to go and play 5 of the 6 courses. And, I get people who write me and say, I'd like to play the course. I've played 75 courses so far. I really want to play yours. So these course collectors, they don't mind paying. These sort of tourist golf people, they don't mind paying. I also have memberships, which I think are pretty cheap for what you get. But that's another way to get basically a bunch of your fees up front for the year to pay for mower fuel and maintenance and all the things that I'm sure Matt's very aware of. So the money thing is never going to cover your costs. I don't think it's a good idea to get into disc golf on the back end thinking you're going to get paid. And again, the money just sort of isn't there. So you've got to find a bunch of other motivations that work. And the people who don't understand how much value they're getting for their fees up front to come and play the course, whether it's $5 or $20 or whatever the number is, if they don't get the fact that they're getting a great deal in return for that entertainment dollar, I suspect Matt would agree with me on this one. I'll turn it over to him. Those people don't really need or deserve to come and play this thing that you've poured so much of your life into. I suspect, Matt, you're probably well over 1,000 hours into this project already, if you're keeping track. And some guy doesn't want to pay 10 or 15 bucks. That's fine. It's fine. It will not make a difference. The property taxes will be the same. The debt you're carrying will be the same. Your carrying costs will be the same. And his 15 bucks isn't going to be a difference. So, I'd like his $15 and I'd like him to bring his friends, but I also don't need to try to convince anybody that this is worth their money.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that is very well said, and it's you didn't sugarcoat it, which I like. So back before I even when I was quasi looking for property, kind of middle of the pandemic, just playing public courses, and I had my little survey set up, and it's like, oh, the consensus was, oh yeah, build it and they will come. Well, that's yes and no. People got accustomed to just show up at the park, play for free, bring your own beers, all that type of stuff, which is fine. I'm going to take a little divergence here. So kind of, I wasn't around in the early days of disc golf, but it's very much a grassroots sport where, okay, you and your buddies, weld together some baskets and you do some fundraising, you get a, course put in your municipality, and then you get to hang out there all the time. It's like your own little private park type of thing. And like Gabe said, that's a very different animal from having your own land where you personally and, friends, family, whoever else you can wrangle, volunteers to help do the labor. The city doesn't come and mow my fairways. The city doesn't come pick up the sticks. The city doesn't, take care of any of that stuff. There's no municipality, kicking in money for any of that stuff. That is all just mud, sweat, and tears for doing it yourself. So it's interesting because any other form of recreation, I play a couple ESSC sports in Edmonton. That's the Edmonton Sport and Social Club. Really, good group. You can play dozens of different sports in that. I pay for volleyball. It's $100 a quarter, so I get I think it's 8 games that are or 8 nights throughout the quarter, and it's $100 a quarter. So I pay $400 a year for volleyball. Dodgeball, another $400 a year for dodgeball to play less than once a week. You look at, okay, you want to go play ball golf somewhere. Okay, any reasonable course, you're looking at, even before the cart fee, what is it, 75, 80, close to $100 for a round. So that'll get you a few hours of entertainment. Yeah. There's one nearby my property. It's a Goose Hummock, a very good course. And I haven't been there in years, but I imagine they're well over $100 for just a round of golf at their place. So in a nutshell, $15 or in that range is a drop in the bucket. And there's plenty of people that are just happy to pay that and go, yeah, you know what? I know exactly what I'm getting. And then there's the, how can I word this? The municipal park players, they have no interest in playing any other course but the one that is closest to their location, so they can drive the shortest distance, play for the least amount of money, and any of that. Just it's absolutely as close to zero cost as possible, which is totally fine. And very early on, I realized that I don't need to appease any of those people. They're still good people in that, but like Gabe was saying, it's like, if they're going to complain about a cost to go play a private course, you can keep playing the courses that are available to you that are in your budget. And you can complain when there are people with tents set up on your fairways, or a cricket match, or a volleyball net, or it's a kid's soccer game. I've seen all these things at the height of summer in municipal courses, where you go and I'm going to get, I'll get a quick round in at the municipal course on a nice August Saturday afternoon. Not a chance. Between the being a 4, 6, 8, 10 some on every tee pad in this course, not to mention a few fairways out of commission because you can't safely throw, let alone all the other people in the park, assuming the course is designed well enough to not hit bikers and walkers and dog walkers and all the rest of that stuff. So the biggest appeal for me for private courses, you can go there knowing you're going to have the disc golf experience that you want. There's not going to be all these other extraneous things, possible dangers, possible, super slow rounds. It makes more sense for me to drive half an hour to a course where I will have the experience I want to enjoy at a very, very low cost, and, just enjoy the day instead of being caught up in, the shared use parks. That was a big thing for me and a big driver in why I took on this project.
I saw Mathew, one of our locals, Joey, mentioned something on Facebook, and I thought it was super relevant, is that we need to stop talking about disc golf as a free sport, because there is no such thing as a free disc golf course. You paid for that course, the municipal course, with your taxes, and you pay for its upkeep with your taxes. Private courses are a little bit more visible because it's a much smaller group, but even like a lot of courses are paid and supported by disc golf clubs, which are volunteer run and community fundraised. And so every single disc golf course you've ever played has been paid for by local people at some point. So I think we need to start coming up with a better term than a free sport.
Yeah, that was an excellent post that Joey made, just kind of highlighting that, a lot of it's preaching to the choir of the people that are going to read that post, and, the disc golf scene equivalent on Facebook will understand that, yes, it takes volunteer hours to do these things. And, occasionally you get people complain about, oh, how come there's not XYZ at ABC at, this park or this league or whatever? And the best way is to not just, oh, hey, well, you should just volunteer. It's like, well, you try and engage them and say, okay, well, if you're interested in running a different type of league, it's like there's positions available in your local clubs that could probably help you get on that path. And it wouldn't just be you doing it, it'd be you in conjunction with the club and other people. And that's where kind of my future plans for Wildman as a whole, there's a bunch of different kind of moving pieces, but is to have part of a Wildman Disc Golf be a club to the places that don't have their own club. So, EDGA is great for Edmonton and Edmonton area. And then there's kind of the different kind of counties around that don't really have kind of a focus or a core group of people to kind of push these things forward to make them happen, to get more courses in the ground. So that is one thing that I'll be pursuing kind of this year and beyond, is kind of looking for ways to kind of engage more volunteers and not just kind of, leeching off the same club and diluting what they're doing in a certain municipality, but to get other people involved in their local places. So if you're in, a rural county and you want disc golf, okay, we'll see if we can help make that happen. Just getting some more volunteers out. And there's plenty of people in my friend group and that are kind of like the course collectors that Gabe said. It's like, we want to go out and we want to try new courses. We want to go, meet new people and go, help things along. We did one in, and a buddy of mine, Mark, kind of pays attention to all the stuff, all the counties north of Edmonton. And there's a tiny town called Clyde, Alberta. And he sends us a message in the group chat. It's like, hey, Clyde, Alberta apparently has a disc golf course in the grand openings tomorrow. Who's in? Everybody. Like, yeah, me. I want to see it. So we get there, and it was a good weather day. They had a great turnout. I think half the town was there at this kind of ribbon cutting ceremony. And we get there, and we're the only ones that have, proper disc golf discs. They're handing out the commemorative frisbees and stuff, because it's, to them, that's what disc golf was. And so we just we played it cool. We're not gonna be, we're gonna go in here, we're gonna show you how to play. We just kind of said, hey, it was obvious that we knew what we were doing, and we kind of waited for an invite to say, oh, hey, let's, hey, you guys know what you do. It looks like you know what you're doing at least. Like, do you want to give us a hand? And we said, yeah, let's. We can divide up if you want. We'll take 6 or 8 people each and cards, and we'll go around and play. And you can borrow some of our discs and throw those. And yeah, we'll give you some pointers. And turned out to be a great learning experience for everybody. For us, as kind of teaching people that had literally never thrown a disc golf disc before, and for the community going, okay, well, I'll tell you, we're learning some things, and really for a course that was designed by someone who'd never thrown a disc before, it actually turned out pretty okay. So, it was much better than I thought it was going to be. But he watched a lot of YouTube and saw courses on TV and saw kind of how far people can throw, and had some pretty good basics down for course design. So it's not terribly hard, but it's like Gabe was talking earlier, maybe before we started rolling, was everybody wants to have a say in, like this tree should be gone, or this hole should be shorter or longer or whatever. So it's easy to kind of fall into that, but it's, really have to kind of appreciate the time and effort that was put in. And it's, I'm guilty of that too. Go to a course, think, oh yeah, I would change this and that. And I've been trying to just say that in my head, especially if I'm around somebody that I know has planned this course or done this course, that we do get, as designers, very proprietary about our stuff, and coming in changing layouts and stuff is, it's fun to do, like safari layouts and stuff, but also you have to be kind of cognizant of the work that has been put in, and it's easy to get taken the wrong way. Even though you may mean it as constructive, it's easy for the designer to get defensive about it, say, oh well, I didn't do that because blah blah blah, or just like, oh, this guy's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And there's a middle ground there somewhere, and everybody'd love to do the fun part, which is designing.
Yeah, and I mean, this is probably a good transition point into talking about designing. And we will get to that in a minute, but as always, our podcast is sponsored by DiscGolfPark. And DiscGolfPark, it's a unique disc golf course concept developed in Finland in 2005. It is based on the idea of building sports facilities in an environmentally friendly way. DiscGolfPark provides great experiences for players of all skill levels, from beginners to professionals, and our main ideology is to introduce disc golf to new audiences. There are several options to suit any kind of course, and all official disc golf parks include professional and safe course design, Disc Golf Park Pro targets, tee pads and tee signs, and an info board to welcome players to your course. The Disc Golf Park World concept consists of multiple courses designed for different types of players. Multi-golf is a new fun activity for the whole family, and in multi-golf, 3 forms of golf are played: foot golf, disc golf, and park-style pitch and putt. School Disc Golf Park offers students a new and exciting form of exercise for the physical education class. A course suitable for schools can be designed even in a small area, for instance, a schoolyard. Furthermore, the costs of school disc golf park are lower than those of regular disc golf parks. We also offer private and group lessons or clinics. For more information, check out the website at discgolfpark.com and request a quote today. So with that conclusion of our well-placed ad read, what baskets do you have in, and why do you wish it was disc golf parks?
This is the whole crux of the podcast. We probably should have mentioned that up front.
Obviously kidding. But
Well, I'll start here. Let me start here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I have Innova, whatever, the 28s, the proper Innova baskets on Project 15. But I was thinking while you were talking, this is a little pitch that I've heard many times listening to your podcast. I also built a second small course on my land, which is called Project 2. It's the second project, so Project 2. And that course, I have those baskets. And although the tone is different and the construction is a little bit lighter, I think they're absolutely top shelf baskets, and I like them very much. And would recommend them. Anybody who is considering putting baskets in the ground, they're at the very top of what's out there. And in my opinion, there's only 3, maybe 4 truly premium baskets on the market from what I know, and these are absolutely at the top of the list.
Well, thank you for that. And Matthew, why did you choose? What baskets do you have, and why did you actually? And while we're talking baskets, it's not just baskets; it's tee pad design and all that kind of stuff. What made you decide to go with what you have?
Yeah, I've also got the Innova Disc Catcher 28. Just bang for the buck. I think those are the top. There are other baskets out there you could probably shave off 100 to maybe 150 a basket. I don't think it's worthwhile to shave off the money to get a lesser tier basket, especially for a short city course, sure, but to do like the full size project, private course, it makes no sense to make this grand old thing and to do some product placement, to open a big fancy restaurant, and when the person asks, "Oh, can I have a Coke on ice?" They say, "Oh, RC Cola, okay." Like no, it's not. So there's certain things that just you have to be just on the nose about, and that's one of those things. That there's a number of baskets that I'm just fine with, but I played on the Disc Catcher Pro or the Disc Golf Park courses, and yeah, they're quite good too. I'd have no qualms with them. I like their kind of light blue color, kind of the color of my shirt. I don't know if they offer any other colors right now, but the ones I played on were this color, which I do quite like. I've got the candy red Innovas at my property. For tee pads, concrete is, in my opinion, the best choice if it's possible. So that's if you can get a concrete truck out and just pour a pad, perfect. If you're in a spot where you can't get poured concrete, I'm not a huge fan of the big sidewalk stones. I've tried that on one hole on my course just to see, and it works, but it's not great. I think just a good turf pad for any sort of inaccessible hilly place is fine. But I've had some people say they actually prefer turf just because the wear and tear on their shoes is a lot less. So I don't know if that's more to do with their form. You got some toe drag issues or whatever. I know I certainly do. But I've been happy with the turf that I've had. Most turf that I've played on, as long as it's enough millimeters long, it should be fine and should hold up pretty well. But given the choice and no budget and logistical constraints, I think concrete is 100% the way for pads.
Totally. I kind of want to talk about you guys designing your own courses, and I think one of the things we were talking about even before we started recording is talking about combining our passions for what we want to wanting to make disc golf our work. And one of the aspects you're seeing is course design, and it's becoming more and more popular where you're seeing people hiring people to come out and design your course. And obviously, Gabe, when you started your course, there may not have been as many people out there, but and I mean, for me, if I had my own property, I'd probably just want to design myself as well. But do you guys see a role in the future of private course ownership where the design, like letting someone else take over that reign? Do you guys foresee that as something that is going to be important for private courses to grow and get more popular?
I'll go first. I would say definitely yes. There's a few people that have kind of that name recognition. I think I forget the guy's name. John Hoke. 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 Yeah, like he's kind of the guy. So if you like just say to just throw something out there, say you had some big property, you wanted to make a like proper championship level course. I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot. It's like if you don't call yourself a championship level course, it's just some little hodunk city course. But to make a true actual course where the pro tour could come visit, I think it would be silly to design it yourself and not pay the little bit extra to get somebody to do it. That has dozens, if not hundreds, of courses under their belt and proven track record and knows all the little things that it's great to do it yourself. It's super fun, but if that is your goal, to have like the proper like tour stop for pros to come play, like a challenging, good, safe, all those words course, I think it'd be well worth paying somebody with that, just to have that name attached to it and just to do it right. Because you can't really uncut a tree down. It doesn't work that way.
No.
And I would say, there's a place for it. The market is cooling rapidly since COVID, and a whole bunch of people, maybe Mathew and I are in the same boat, but a whole bunch of people decided they were disc golf course designers or decided they wanted to be disc golf course designers. And a portion of them wanted to go out into the world and, hang up their shingle and become sort of traveling salesmen and so on. And there's only a couple of outfits out there that are really doing that. And Hauk's one of them, or Hook, however you do say it. I've always said Hauk. And half of his game is running these sort of clinics and so forth, and getting people to fly to Austin, Texas to do clinics where surely they talk about more than just safety, which is all you see on the websites and their Facebook presence is safety, which of course is important. And especially in the States, where I think they have this sort of litigation culture where seemingly you have to protect yourself from people suing you for any kind of liability concerns. So, on one hand, if you own property, you're not interested in disc golf, and you're crazy enough to think that you should have a disc golf course, sure, hire a professional to manage all that stuff. The world of ball golf course design is a very old profession with schools and, basically architecture degrees if you're going to do this stuff. One of the things, in my opinion, humble opinion, one of the things that's wonderful about disc golf is that it's still operating at this sort of smaller neighborhood level where people like me, relatively bright with some skills, and a contractor by trade, I understand how to move materials around and build things, and good with the saw and all that stuff. Even me, with just the land and the effort and a bit of money, can make things happen and come up with courses that are pretty good. So that's part of the charm, in my opinion. If you want to get into course work and design, really you just need land. You have to get a bunch of these courses under your belt before you can sell these services, I think. And then on top of that, you've got to consider the fact that if you do design a course and somebody does damage their own body or the body of somebody else seriously, you're also legally implicated by all of that. And I'm sure Matt has some thoughts about the risks we take, letting people come on our land and climb up and down hills and throw objects around. It's hard to get around that insurance stuff, and it's hard to actually pay an insurance premium on this kind of thing, even if you could find a company that would underwrite the project. But yes, if you're trying to make a commercial enterprise with disc golf, you should probably hire somebody if you don't want to do it yourself. But again, I think part of the fun of this game at the scale that it happens. Holes are going to be from, we'll just say 100 to, next year I'll have 1,000-foot hole on my course. Currently I have 900 and change. That isn't a very big piece of land. And we can make the mistakes on that sort of stretch and learn as we go. And that's one of the really charming things about it. And that's why so many of us who have access to land or have this dream have a chance to do it. We don't have the $1 to $2 million a hole that it takes to produce a disc golf course, a ball golf course, land not included, maintenance not included, clubhouse not included. So there's a sort of street level thing about this game that I think is really cool. Yes, we need some designers in some cases, but you look around the Pro Tour, you watch some of the stuff on the weekends, and some of those courses look really bad. And you guys know very well how hard it is to make it look good on camera. And I don't just mean look good and appealing the way that Augusta looks good on camera with $1 million a minute production values. It's hard to give the viewer any real sense of the elevation in particular, the scale, the size, the sort of the vivid colors, all the things that we love about being outside on a disc golf course. They don't translate really well onto little screens. So this is just some of the challenges that comes with all of this. And yeah, there's a place for designers. I don't know how seriously that affects any of us day to day. I'm not trying to project this set of skills I've developed and go around and build courses for people. If people ask me to, I might be quite happy to do it because it is a real thrill to be out there designing some holes. I got to do one recently on a project near Toronto. I had an absolute gas doing it. And it's really fun to take the sets of questions that you have to ask yourself and lay them onto a piece of property and work through all the questions, work through all the details, find the answers, try things, mark trees, do your preliminary cuts, come back, widen stuff where it needs to be widened. All that stuff is a real gas. And I don't know that there's a way to make that sort of commercial, especially when John Houck is consuming all the oxygen in the industry already. How are you going to compete with this guy? You're not. So anyway, hopefully that's a slightly interesting answer to your question.
I think actually that illustrates it really well, because I think the biggest point that I think people can take from that is, it's not Joe who's only played Baker Park in Calgary coming to design a course and, every hole is going to be like Baker Park. It's, you can tell that you both have put a lot of thought into the design. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm thinking about designing a hole or seeing a hole is actually just picturing people playing it, and not a lot of people just think about that. They think, put a basket there, put the tee box there, and just make it work. It's like, well, no, you kind of gotta make people think about the golf side of disc golf. And I think that's what I think gets lost a lot in some disc golf designs here and there. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's easy to get kind of caught up in, it has to be this many feet, and it's, like there's the guide on the I think it's the Innova site where it's like, okay, or maybe it's PDGA site where it's okay, if a hole is wide open, it should be about this many feet for this par, and it should be, if it's sparsely wood, it should be this many feet, and people get really caught up in these are the numbers, and you have to be this, and it has to be like, no, it's as long as the total par ends up something reasonable, then I think it's totally fine. Like Gabe talked about before, it's like you might have a hole that plays great, and yeah, it plays as a 3.5. Like, well, do you call it a 3? Do you call it a 4? Well, the easy solution is you go find another hole that also plays as a 3.5 or 4.5, and you make one a par higher and one a par lower. One becomes an impossible birdie or close to impossible birdie, and one becomes if you birdie it, you feel okay about it. And if you don't birdie it, you're like, why didn't I get that bird? So the cumulative thing is kind of what matters on that stuff. Like you should always have some nemesis holes. I've been telling a couple of my buddies that they get upset over certain trees on the course, and you say, you know what? You have to have a nemesis hole or 2, maybe 3, probably not more than 3 though. And just a hole that just kicks your ass almost every time, but eventually you hit the perfect line, things go good, and you hope you make your putt to get the birdie or to get further down the fairway if it's a par 4. But you have to have some holes you love to hate, because when you do conquer them, it's that much better. It makes no sense just to, I'm going to get a birdie on this hole every time. If I don't get a bird, I'm mad. Well, if I want to do that, I'll go play park golf.
Yeah, we're at the end of the day, like we're really not that far removed from disc golf being a sport of like dudes with frisbees in a park saying, "Hey, I bet I can hit that tree before you," off in the distance. Like it's still a sport at the end of the day about, I wonder if I can hit that thing over there with this thing in my hand. So I think having some of the spirit of that, if you're not wanting to have the highest level of professional athletes regularly coming to your course, like make it a fun thing to throw discs around at, right? And use your gut. um there's so much stuff I want to get to, but we're already going somewhat long. So I guess real quickly, did you guys find that your courses have been getting harder as time goes on and as people play them, or have you made them easier, or are they about the same as when you first started laying them out?
Well, I got an answer for that. That's pretty easy. I assumed when I started this project that I would take 4 years to sort of chip away and eventually I'd have a course. I agreed to be a part of the Ontario Provincials tournament in 2017 when a local course failed, and the courses they had planned to run the Provincials tournament had to scramble to find another course. And, I was barely underway at the time. So in 2017, I'd been working on the course through the winter, not expecting to be ready. And suddenly in July, we had to have at the time we went for 16 holes to get ready so that we qualified. And at the time, the course is sort of scratched out of the woods. It was narrow. It was brutal. There were lines you could hit for sure. It was a real disc golf course, but it was not wide enough to be fair. And as soon as you got off the fairway, the margins were just brutal. Once you were off the fairway, it was jail. So in the years since, one of the things that has happened is all of those fairways are wider. Those greens are much more interesting and nuanced, and there are more details there. And not only are the fairways wider, but the sort of gray areas on the edges are much more forgiving, much more manicured, giving you a whole lot more options, because we do play from off the fairway a fair amount in this game. The amount that discs track sideways as they fade is enormous. And that's for the best players, let alone the lesser players who also spray off the tee. They don't just throw straight and then let it fade. They spray and then it goes all over the place. And I'm certainly one of those sort of weak players who throws it all over. And as you're saying earlier, Andre, like you do have to understand that on the tee box or at any point on the hole, people are going to throw every single shot, and they're going to fail at every single shot, and they're going to throw over your holes, and they're going to throw weird overhead forehand stuff that you didn't even anticipate. That's true, but it's also true that wholly 80% of your holes are going to be right-hand backhand, and you have to think really carefully about where all those spill out areas are, because people are going to be playing constantly from parts of that hole that are not what you see as the main landing areas. So you have to sort of put all that stuff together. So back to the question really quickly. I know we're in a little bit of a hurry. My course, I think, has gotten a lot easier with respect to the width of the fairways, the softness of the margins, but it's also got a little bit more challenging in the sense that I've added some longer tee pads, and a bunch of the greens have been extended to add X feet, 10 to 20 to 100 feet here and there to make them a bit more interesting. But there's no doubt that this course has got easier to play and more fair, and I hope way, way more fun, because you're not just battling these little hallways. That was the best we could do within 6 months of starting the project and getting it ready for the provincials in 2017.
And Matt, I'm secretly hoping you're going to say you got easier because your course kicked my ass last time I played out there. So,
yeah, very similar to Gabe. It's so just roll back in time. So Buttland in June 21, and then all through 21 was just hacking fairways out, and I think we ended up with about 14 or 15 holes, if I recall. But they were very rough, like literally stuff hacked down and then stacked on the side of the walking path. It's the best way to describe some of those fairways. So it has gotten definitely easier. Some holes that now that the kind of the we'll call it the rough or the gray fairway, or the I sometimes call it the bonus fairways, has gotten fairer, where you don't have to land it in a 20 or 30 foot wide space to be able to throw. there are certain spots where we've hacked out now enough kind of willow and stuff. The one hole that comes to mind is hole 14, which is it's only about a 650 foot from the blues, a par 5. So it kind of goes kind of elevated this tee box, kind of down the hill, up the hill, and then a hard right into a split fairway. So the right-hand fairway is still super narrow, which I've kept it that way on purpose. You shave off probably an extra 50 or 60 feet to the pin, taking that fairway. And the left side fairway is kind of a more sweeping, kind of gentle dogleg right that is reasonably wide. But between the fairways, there's probably on average, say about 60 feet. And it was the core of, if you were in there, you didn't have room to throw. You'd be in 8 or 9 foot tall, like skinny willow things that you'd be fighting them. You'd be kind of going through like you're in the jungle. You find your disc and you go, I can't even look up to find an overhead shot. So we've been working hard just clearing out all that stuff in between. It's still tree jail. There's still, a pretty big poplar tree. There's 4 and 5 foot gaps all the way down. But if you have, a 250 foot shot to the pin, and it's not even plinko, you can't even see the pin. So you kind of still have to pitch out back to a fairway. But if you do want to get greedy, at least now you have room to actually swing, to find a stance, to swing, to try and get ahead. So on that hole in particular, it's still just as hard to birdie or to par it, but you won't be taking as many massive, 8, 9, 10 strokes, which I saw a number of, and I scored myself. In one of the tournaments, they got it 10 strokes on that hole, just because you end up in tree jail and then go from tree jail to the other tree jail and just back and cross and just never play the fairway. So at least now you have an option to make some safer plays to keep the score down. So all in all, easier, but more just a better experience, we'll call it, where you're not, risking poking eyes out when you lean over to pick your disc up. And like, I've hacked down rose bushes that were, taller than me, 6, 7, 8 feet tall, just big, massive things with huge thorns. And I hack all those as best I can. And that's all you can do. Just keep weed whacking them, keep mowing them over, and hope they don't grow back as fast next time.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to get back to the on the course design things. It's a big part that my buddy Curtis, that runs the course in Drayton Valley, said it's an important thing is the challenge versus the fun factor. It's great to make super hard, challenging holes, but you also have to have elements of fun where it's not just, this hole or this course is just going to kick my butt over and over. You do have to kind of go from one to the other, have some holes that, okay, not necessarily gimmies, but just, like a nice, easiest ace run, and then, get your butt kicked by, a par 4, par 5, especially a wooded course, and go back to more fair hole. It's nice to have some variation there instead of just, too easy or too hard. But it's, just the challenge versus fun balance is very important.
That's great. And my last question, because I know we got Gabe's in a totally different time zone where it's much later. I would have assumed that like municipalities and counties or whatever the regulatory body is, because both of your courses are outside of the city. Gabe, you're north of Peterborough, and Matt, you're north of Edmonton. I would have assumed that like the counties and neighboring municipalities would be falling all over themselves trying to get new like recreational facilities near them that people would drive to. Like I have, shopped at that Esso on the way just outside of the airbase a number of times going up to your course, and that's a place that I never would have visited if it wasn't for your course. But I get the sense that sometimes it's not as easy as that, and sometimes these bodies can present more challenges than they can solutions for you. Matt, why don't we start with you? What have been some of the challenges that you've run into from a regulatory perspective?
Just a combination of things. It's as Gabe was saying, I think again it was before we were rolling, was just there's no neat, tidy box for them to go, okay, this disc golf thing fits in this box. It's slightly more intensive than walking trails, but it's definitely not full on ball golf. But it's somewhere in the middle, and in my opinion, closer to walking trails than to like ball golf or a recreational facility. So I did a rezoning bid last year, and had never rezoned a pizza land before. I'm not a land developer. I'm just a dude who likes disc golf, who has enough land and time to get himself in trouble to build these things and then continue chugging forward. So when I first went to the county, we had some conversations. Okay, well, would it fit with this? And they're like, well, no. Like, well, would it fit with this? And well, no. Like, well, it's really, we'll just push you through this recreation zoning. And the way it works in my county is recreation zoning is a pretty all-encompassing, almost any recreational activity you can think of. Once you get that zoning, if I, for example, say I did get that zoning and I said, oh, I don't really want disc golf anymore, but I kind of want a shooting range, that would pretty much be allowed. Be okay, you can switch it to a shooting range, you're good to go. It's or BMX track, or almost any sort of outdoor activity you can think of would have been allowed under that. So as we got kind of into the rezoning process, it became very obvious very quickly that the neighbors didn't like that. The people at the county had issues with that, going, well, if he does change what he wants to do, he shouldn't just get free reign to do what he wants. I said, that's fine, because I don't want those things. I want disc golf. So we tried to do it as a direct control district, where instead of a cookie cutter recreation, commercial, institution zoning, we kind of tried to develop this thing, which was, outdoor recreation facility for disc golf. And a lot of the terms were not super well defined. Even it being run as a private camper club was misunderstood, I think, by some of the powers that be that have the decision-making abilities, into thinking it was going to be a campground, which is the words sound the same, but they're not even close in meaning. So long story short, I didn't get the rezoning that I wanted last year. I lost the vote 4-3. And since that time, there's been, between my bid for rezoning and some other groups in the county doing kind of similar low impact recreational things, didn't get what they wanted. They've now changed one of their districts to allow for essentially a privately run park on private land, is the best way to describe it. So I said, hey, this is the thing we're trying to create, on the fly, and it didn't fly that time. So I think that will be a better direction forward for something like that. It just fits disc golf better, and it gives them a box that is closer to check that they understand what it means as in terms of trying to recreate the wheel.
In my case, the negotiations with the municipality were all in the sort of preliminary stages and then early stages. So I went back a couple times and spoke to one of the planners and said, here's what I'm trying to do. And it blew their mind to have to think outside of these already existing boxes. And it blew their mind to think that I was doing something that wasn't truly a commercial venture. It's pretty easy for them if I show up and say, I'm trying to run a business. They go, well, that means the following things. Just like it would be easy, as Matt said, if I said I've got private walking trails or a ball golf course. Well, we know what that stuff is. We have what's called a usage guide. We have a page for each of those things, but we don't have a disc golf page. And by the way, a local company called Chainlink, who's affiliated with DiscGolfPark, they've been building some of this infrastructure into the municipal codes in the Greater Toronto area, and have got a lot of courses in the ground with a lot of really great stuff. I've collaborated on a hole with them at one of their courses, and a big piece of what they're doing, the sort of the tip of the spear, if you will, is improving some of this verbiage and some of the way that the municipalities see these undertakings, these projects, because again, they don't have a paradigm for this. So in my case, speaking to the municipality about this stuff, they were sort of saying, well, if you're not doing something we know of, and you don't seem to be doing something that anybody's going to be bothered by, and you're not spraying pesticides, and you're not doing a lot of mowing, and you don't have a clubhouse, and you're not selling alcohol, and you're not having tournaments, then I don't think there's going to be a problem, especially if nobody complains. So we've sat in this sort of quiet spot where I have a private course that accepts donations from the people who use it. And we haven't had to get into things like traffic studies and all of the other things that would apply if we in fact did have a real business running, and a pro shop and a tuck shop and all the things that sort of people tend to tack on to businesses to suck up a little bit more income. That's not what's going on here. If you want to play this course, you find my email address somehow. I send you a document that tells you that about keeping your voices low and how the money works and all that stuff. You show up, there'll be nobody in the parking lot. You go play the course, you follow along on UDisc, you score, you have fun, you keep your voice low, you put your money in the little cash box. I say thank you for the donation, and then you drive home. And for the most part, it's just me and my neighbors who have any knowledge of this going on. And if you do keep your voice down, we don't have any problems. I don't want to live on a disc golf course, so I ask people to keep their voice down. I don't want to disturb my neighbors, so I ask people to keep their voice down. I want to have a dynamic in play when you're on my disc golf course where the other people who are playing not on your card are not being bothered and disturbed by your noise and your swearing when things go badly and your loud laughter when things go well. I don't mind if you celebrate a great shot at all. I do mind if the volume's up here all the time. And there are a lot of guys, and they happen to be the guys that are objecting to paying $15 to play, who can't get the volume off of this level, right? I need you to roll around 4, and they talk habitually at 8 or 9. And I don't need those guys at the course. And a bunch of people can't do it, and that's fine. But if they do come and this is too much of a problem for volume and the other stuff, or garbage, or all this stuff, as a private course owner, I have every right to say, I'm sorry, I'd rather you not come back. And I haven't had any trouble. Part of that is laying out the expectations about the private course. Part of that is that the fact that people really do understand the fact that this is private land rather than going to a park. A lot of people are not happy about the fact that they're being asked to keep their voice low. But they do understand the difference between I go to the park and I throw discs and I can drop F-bombs and, do whatever I want, drink the beers and all the stuff. And then I go to private land and the rules are different. People understand that somehow. And I don't know why, but that's not a stretch for them. So you can make a set of sort of requests with respect to behavior, payment, conduct. I'm not asking you to wear a collared shirt and slacks. I'm asking you to just not be too loud. I'm asking you to make a small donation. I'm asking you to respect the other people who are on the course and respect my neighbors, respect me, so that I can walk out in my backyard and not have to listen to you because I'm really close to the course. And that stuff all seems to work. But I think it's worth mentioning with respect to the question here. I don't have the feeling that, I should say this way. I do have the feeling that we're already pretty close to the point where the municipality might have to check in, It wouldn't take many complaints about traffic or people parking on the road or my neighbor feeling like this is a little bit too much before I am back in front of the municipality saying, come on, it's recreation, it's fun, it's good for everybody. No, I'm not making any money. And look, once or twice a year, we put 100 people in local Airbnbs and hotels. And people come and they buy 400 coffees and they buy 300 meals. And this is another thing about Chain Link Disc Golf Productions. Those guys do all the math. So when they show up at a municipality trying to put together a course, they present to the people in suits in a way that I have no interest in doing. And they sell these packages to people that make them, sign the checks and make the world move. And my hope here is to just stay a little bit behind all of that stuff so I can continue to do this thing quietly and have complete control of the whole package.
Yeah, there's some good points there that like currently my property, it's invite only, friends and family. There's no business out there. It's in some ways, I think I'm glad I didn't get the full on rec zoning because that does trigger all sorts of proper business things like a traffic impasse assessment, improving the approach on the road, building a hard surface parking lot, gravel. So in some ways, I think I may have been better off not getting that initial zoning because I think disc golf is not there yet. In 30 years, it might be, but right now it's still very much a passion project, and it's I'm sure I'm speaking for Gabe too, but it's like we build these things to share. Like it's one thing, like we started saying, oh, I want 3 holes just so I can throw discs around a little bit, kind of just for my own use. Like, well, it's now we both figured out, hey, it's if we can make something cool that people will enjoy, it's a shame not to be able to share it with everybody that, they will be respectful of that. And that's kind of my 2 rules when I do send out invites to friends and family is, yeah, you respect the land and respect the people. So land includes, the course and not smoking, and the people is, each other and nature and the neighbors. And where it's, you do keep your voices down, and you don't, excessively make noise, and you pick up your garbage. Just pretty basic things that, and thankfully, most disc golfers don't need to be reminded of very often. That we're very much kind of that hiking with a purpose is 100% accurate. That you pack out what you pack in, and that's just what you do. And it's thankfully most disc golfers are very on board with that and don't have to be told. And
I think what a common theme that I've kind of been hearing, and it's kind of a summarization of basically the type of people that want to play disc golf courses. And I've heard this in the past from people that play a lot of public courses in bigger, especially in bigger cities and stuff, is the reason that they want to come to private courses and want to pay that is to kind of get away from that sort of rowdy idea that some people have, and to be able to just book a tee time and know that you're there, that you pay for that time. You don't have that stress of having 6 cards behind you or being behind a card of 10 people. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the growth of the sport. There's such a demand for both this accessible disc golf courses in municipal parks and whatnot, and then also having that private side of things. So I think that that's a pretty good summary of private and public courses. So
yeah, there's definitely room for both, and I think in the future we'll see a lot more of both. But it does take time, and does take people that want to make that effort, and then just the volunteer hours. Like I can't stress that enough. It takes a village, so to speak. Well, it takes a village to make a spot worthwhile to play when you're starting from scratch and don't have a public park already kind of ready to put baskets in the ground, money and municipality what's the word I'm looking for? Just permission to basically put these courses in. So it's starting from scratch is difficult. So yeah, help out wherever you can. We'll gladly take it.
Yeah. So you're both guaranteeing that nobody will be using your baskets as a barbecue at your course. Like we come there won't be a family.
Yes.
Okay, that's a guarantee. We got it in.
Guaranteed. Yeah, on the record.
Clip it, put it on socials.
Okay. Well, Andre, do you have any other?
No, I think that's it for me. This is fantastic. So.
Yeah, this was super thorough, and the reason we wanted to have you guys on is because we know that you're both thoughtful people and would have a lot of interesting things to say about your experiences. People who make courses happen out of nothing, like oftentimes it takes an entire club, sometimes 30, 40 people, and to get out there and just put your foot in the ground and say, nope, we're going to make a course right here. I think it's one of the biggest things that you can do for the sport. So we really appreciate it. Everybody that's played your courses, I know, really appreciates it a lot. And so we've got your Instagram handles on the screen here. I assume you guys, are you both open to like work parties? Gabe, do you ever have work parties at your course?
We've tried before, and every so often someone will say, hey, I let me know if you ever have a work party. And the truth is, almost every night I have a work party by myself, and I love it. People are welcome. But I kind of, as a rule, don't chase people. There are people on the inner circle who I love and am forever grateful to for all of their contribution, ongoing, whether they trim a bit or made massive contributions in the early days, cutting or whatever. I won't list them all, but I really do have great love and gratitude in my heart for certain people who stay in this project with me. And there's still a lot of people who are sort of, I'll call them posers. They say, yeah, I'll come and help you out. And they don't, which is almost worse than not even offering in the first place. But, now that I'm it's sort of the course is maturing. The big thing is getting through the summer grass cutting stretch. And then I have a bit more time for the fun stuff, which is details in the holes and a new tee here and extending that green and so on. But anyway, let me take this opportunity just for the fun of it to say thank you without names to the people who have contributed up to this point. I will never forget you folks, and you mean a lot to me, and you've made a major contribution to this project, and I truly appreciate it.
And Matt, I know you're not totally fully open to the public, but you are open to help on occasion, right? So people can reach out to you via Instagram or Facebook, I imagine.
Yeah, best thing to do is like in the Edmonton area, we've got the Edmonton Disc Golf Scene Facebook page there where people kind of post things going on. So I'll be posting something in there, likely at the end of May here. We'll probably do some sort of cleanup thing. So they're kind of conflicting things where it's great to have people want to come out and help. But like Gabe said, it's, like for me, like I don't live on the property, but, a few times a week, I just go out there and I tootle around and do this and that. So there's definitely some diminishing returns of looking after volunteers and finding stuff for them to do. So it helps to have a proper, here's the work day. Come bring your rakes and bring, your weed trimmers and stuff like that. Cause when it's a specific thing like that, it's easy to do. Or if it's like, okay, we're going to install some tee pads, or we're going to, do the baskets, which happens, once, but still for organized things like that, it helps to have a whole bunch of hands. Other than that, it's like just small amounts here and there. And same as Gabe, it's, I've got my kind of the inner core of people that help out on a regular basis, and they all know who they are, and they know that we're super thankful for what they do. But keep an eye out for the work parties. That's one where I'm not going to work you super hard. I'm not going to make you, pull weeds. I'm not going to make you drive the tractor. I wouldn't let you drive the tractor anyways. But so it'll be pretty light duty stuff. It'll be, raking stuff into piles so I can rip around with the quad, that day or later and just scoop it up and throw off from the burn pile and stuff like that. So it'll be pretty light duty. And then, we'll get some, pizza or beer or whatever, and then play in the afternoon. So I'm pretty low key on those. So do keep a lookout for those dates. There'll be at least a couple this year. But there's always spring cleanup stuff to do.
Awesome. Well, and this doesn't just go for our two guests, but thank your local course designer, thank your local course builders, whether they be private or, older members of the clubs in the cities where you live, people that made courses happen. Don't criticize their course design, and say thanks for doing something that not a lot of people want to put in the effort to do. So. And we will say thank you to you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the podcast tonight. This was awesome. Loved hearing about your stories about your courses.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed being here. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Yeah. Oh, before we forget.
Thank you guys. It's been a lot of fun. And I just got to give you a little love. I think the podcast you guys have been doing has been great. And I really think it's cool how you pay attention to the pro tour at large. You pay attention to the small stuff and the big stuff. And you pay attention to Canadians, not just inside our country, but those that go abroad and compete and represent us. I think it's cool. This sport's growing. We're all still settling into the post-COVID boom, which is now contracting a little bit. And there's a lot of really kind of low quality disc golfy stuff out there. And I think you guys are really well above the kind of the mean, and your production stuff's just excellent. So it's an honor to be here. Thanks for the time. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much. That means a ton. And before we forget, Gabe was nice enough to supply us with some Project 15 stickers. So we're going to be giving one of those away with a MVP Open Hex. I think it's got a glow rim. So we'll be giving that away. Check out our socials. Follow these guys on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. And
it's probably going to be how you're going to win that disc and sticker. So
yeah. Or maybe we should just make it for the people that stick through the entire podcast.
Sure.
That might be fun. Yeah. If you watch till the end of the podcast, why don't you make a comment on YouTube or email us?
Say the comment on YouTube will be "What a wild project!" !
What a wild project.
or something
approve that
along
name.
those lines.
Yeah. I love it. Or
Awesome.
email it to us if you're not listening on YouTube, and we will enter you into what will surely be a somewhat small draw, but yeah, hopefully one of our hardcore listeners will be rewarded. So and also before we leave, tournament updates. Canadians, Sheldon Springs, a couple of weeks ago we had a winner in MP40. Chance Stad won at the Discraft Cascade Challenge. This was all the age protected divisions. MP40 Chance Stad. FP40 Christy Lee won by 12 strokes. Dominating performance. And in MP60 Chris Hartman won by 13 strokes. We have amazing Canadian disc golfers that are going down to the States and absolutely cleaning up. And just this weekend, we have started the Las Vegas Challenge, and Sophia Dunica, BC Sophia Dunica, is winning after the first round. Hopefully we're not jinxing her if this comes out tomorrow, but she is beating some full-time touring pros right now. So keep an eye on that tournament. I think somebody's doing post-production coverage of that. So a good couple of weeks for Canadian disc golfers going down to the States and doing really well.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. There's your little Canadian disc golf update. I actually, on a personal level, I'll say the Rusty Rescue Series event came to a conclusion. I now have a free weekend coming up, which is amazing. It was a blast. We raised a lot of money for the Columbia Valley Disc Golf Association, which will all go towards our local course as well. So we really appreciate everyone that was able to come out and play that. Means a lot to see the growth in the Coonies, especially, and seeing people come from Calgary and even coming down from Edmonton. So it's also always awesome to see the support for our local courses and stuff. So if you are still listening to this at this point, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button if you like this podcast, rate us on Spotify, do what you got to do. We appreciate all the love. And if you like this podcast and you want us to get more private course owners on, I mean, I feel like we could just keep talking about this stuff. So we'd love to either have you guys back, and we did have a few other people lined up that couldn't make it tonight. So there's a lot to talk about. And yeah, if you guys have questions about private courses, let us know, and ask Gabe and Mathew on Instagram and whatever. I'm sure that they're happy to answer questions as well. So if you are not a Patreon, head over to patreon.com/parkpro. We appreciate all the support you can get. For as little as $1.50 a month, you could be supporting this podcast and all of our production. So thank you to our current Patreons as well.
Yeah. And Brian Fries went down to North Dakota and he won a B tier.
Oh yeah. Right.
Played 1,000 something rated golf. Really good. Okay. We're good.
Got it all.
I think that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much from all of us here at Park Pro. Get out, play private course, and enjoy life.
Oh,